Congressman and chair of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, has issued a flurry of subpoenas for former officials in relation to the Epstein files. The most notable on the list being former President Bill Clinton, his wife Hillary, Merrick Garland, and James Comey. They must appear for depositions. Comer also issued a subpoena to the Justice Department, specifically Attorney General Pam Bondi, for records relating to the case, writing, "It is imperative that Congress conduct oversight of the federal government's enforcement of sex trafficking laws generally and specifically its handling of the investigation and prosecution of Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell. Documents related to the department's investigation and prosecution of Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell are relevant to the committee's investigation." It's interesting because, of course, Democrats were very quick to jump on this Epstein story once they thought it could paint the president in a negative light, but it might be backfiring, as it's possible that this is going to indict some of their own people. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. So we've had this kind of renewed interest in the Epstein situation from Democrats now that they're trying to use this as a cudgel against President Trump. That interest was not there before. This isn't the first time that a congressional committee has tried to subpoena Epstein records. Marsha Blackburn tried to do it in 2023. And it was Democrat Dick Durbin, at the time the chair of the Judiciary Committee, who showed no interest in a vote on that.
He blocked her from being able to do it.
That's right, exactly. So this interest from Democrats is very recent, and I'm curious to see whether it stays on now that the Clintons are involved. I'm also curious to see how many of these people actually respond to these subpoenas, and if they don't, if they get the same treatment that Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon did.
Will they plead the fifth like the Biden officials have been about his fitness? What do you think, Jason?
So first of all, I don't think they're going to answer these subpoenas, just like Jim Jordan didn't answer, just like Andy Biggs didn't answer, and just like Donald Trump didn't answer when the J6 committee subpoenaed them. So I think, when you have someone who's a former president, they're going to, not reply to that. The other thing is the interest really popped back up when someone on the right by the name of Elon Musk tweeted out Trump is in the Epstein files. That's when it really blew up again. And again, it was people like Dan Bongino, it was people like Kash Patel. They were in the podcast world. They were pushing this. This wasn't Democrats. And then when you get this Republican administration under Donald Trump, everybody's asking, what's going to happen? And he's like, why are we still talking about Epstein? That renewed Democrats. They were like, whoa, you said all these things. Now let's do it. And now all of a sudden you're ordering the FBI to scrub the files of your name. And I think that that's kind of curious. The last thing I would say is this. Why aren't we hearing from the victims? Why isn't James Comer asking to hear from the victims? Why are we only hearing from them in the media? There are victims who are willing to speak. Not all of them should be unmasked, of course, but there are victims who are willing to speak, Maria Farmer, others who want to speak. The other thing is, why don't we ever hear from Jeffrey Epstein's driver? Why don't we hear from his chef? Why don't we hear from his doorman? All these other people that may have information that's important about who they saw, what they saw, and when they saw it.
There's some good points, Jason.
It is worth noting, by the way, that the reason that Democrats weren't proactively saying they want to see the files is because Elle is completely right that they were literally doing everything they possibly could to block these things from being released. Dick Durbin, obviously an older Democrat, would be one of the people. Dick Durbin would be one of the people who is loyal to the Clinton family, for example. And we've seen that Bill Clinton has quite a lot of publicly known ties to Jeffrey Epstein and his plane. So that might be part.
So does Donald Trump. He's been on that plane 7 times. The problem, and again,
Bill Clinton has been doing more than just being on that plane.
We have Epstein's voice saying Donald Trump was my best friend for 10 years.
Donald Trump is one of the few people who publicly cut ties with Epstein.
But the timeline is really getting thrown off with that. He says it was earlier, and it was actually in 2007. He was still a member at Mar-a-Lago. So there's a lot of stuff that's really not looking good.
Well, then Bill Clinton,
and I want to hear I want to see the information.
It'll also be interesting to potentially.
I think Bill Clinton's in there. Screw Bill Clinton.
The president made.
I think unfortunately a lot of people did.
One bit.
President Trump made a good point that the Democrats had this information. If there was any untoward information on it, it would have come out by now. And the president himself said multiple times that he would be willing to release the Epstein files. But when he came out and said now that there might be a problem with it, it is because we probably have some Steele dossier type of documents that everything has been added in under the past administration because he knows what he did. He wouldn't go out there and say, I would release all this information if he knew that he wasn't innocent. So I believe that unfortunately we have a cascade of documents that's probably not completely truthful, and he doesn't want to put that.
Well, then don't scrub your name from it.
Information. Truth is freedom. is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.